There's a lot of ways to exercise, but at the end of the day, the only option that you can't choose, that you cannot choose, is to not exercise, because there are too many health benefits associated with exercise. There are too many health risks associated with not exercising. And so it's an absolute must, if you want to make sure that you're able to keep doing all the things that you want to do, that you spend some time exercising throughout your week. And so these parameters are, we're not going to tell you exactly what to do while you're exercising, but they are more guidelines for, regardless of how you're exercising, things to think about for while you're doing your exercises.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And if you're looking for a way to exercise on your own while still receiving the quality of guidance that we give our clients here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, then you need to check out our virtual membership program. To learn more about this program, head to matschaumburg.com and click on the membership tab. Now today we are answering your questions, and we get questions submitted via email, via Instagram, via Facebook Messenger. But this question is one that we get often from new clients, and especially those who are struggling with arthritis. And the question is, what can I do to help me keep exercising even though I have arthritic knees? And arthritic knees are something that are super common. In fact, it's one of the more common areas that we hear about people getting arthritis. And so this question we run into all the time of people wanting to work out, but they're not able to do the same things that they used to be able to do. So we want to shed some light and provide some guidance on some things that you can do while you're working out that can help make sure that you're able to keep working out.
So we got to get one thing straight. When you get arthritic joints, which everyone gets eventually, like if we all lived long enough, we would all get arthritic joints, because arthritis is the wearing away of that smooth stuff that goes in between your joints that makes the gliding between bones really nice and smooth. And so what happens over time with wear is that this stuff wears out, and what's underneath of this stuff, called hyaline cartilage, is bone. And bone is a highly innervated tissue, and so it really doesn't feel good when bone is crunching or trying to glide on top of another unsmooth bone. So the fact of the matter is that arthritis is not reversible. But we do know there are a couple things that we can do to help, number one, prevent the progression of arthritis. And number two, if you are a candidate for potentially a knee replacement or some kind of surgical intervention, what can we do to push this back as long as possible? Because the original joint that you do have is probably the best you're going to have. And if we can preserve that as much as we can, that would be ideal, at least in our opinion. So another thing too is, if you are a candidate for surgery, incorporating these concepts that we're going to be talking about is also really beneficial, because the stronger that you can go into surgery, if you are considering a knee replacement, the better off you will be. So these tips, these concepts that we're going to be talking about apply to those that have arthritis, that are trying to stay as active, as strong, as mobile as possible, and also those that feel like they might be on the road to a potential knee replacement. But what can we be doing right now with your exercise to just make the best of this arthritic knee situation?
Hey, Julie, that last point you bring up, that's a really important point. And I think it's one that most people tend to overlook, because their body's hurting, their body's aching, they have these joints that need to be replaced, and they're just like, just get me to the surgery as fast as possible. But when we've had clients come in that kind of try to get this pre-surgery strength up, oh my gosh, their recovery time is phenomenal compared to everybody else when they go in and they don't do the pre-strengthening before the surgery. And so it's a really, really important point. I mean, I can think of at least 4 or 5 different clients that we've had come to us in order to get stronger before they go off and have surgery. And they all come back. And the thing that they say is, my physical therapist could not believe how quickly I was recovering and how quickly I was progressing after surgery. And that's across the board. Every single one of them said that, and both them and their doctors chalk it up to their physical strength that they had going into surgery. So if you are scheduled for surgery, getting your physical strength up before you hop on the table is really, really, really important. It more than likely will cut down on your recovery time. It more than likely will help to kind of just speed up that recovery process and allow you to get back to doing all the things you want to do much, much, much quicker.
Now, one thing that exercise is amazing at is helping you improve your quality of life. And whenever Charlie and I talk to clients, talk to people, through our podcast, all these things, one thing that's a huge factor into, calculating someone's quality of life is, are they able to participate in the activities that they're wanting to participate in? And we find that with arthritis anywhere, but particularly in the knees, just because it's such a huge factor in how they're able to use their lower body, whether it's stairs or walking somewhere or going hiking or, sitting for a long period of time, whatever it is, we find that exercise oftentimes changes your sensation of discomfort, but always changes what activities you're able to participate in. So yes, exercise is not going to be your doctor pain relief, but it might change your sensation of pain. But what it always influences is your muscle system. And what your muscle system allows you to do is allows you to have ownership of your body more and more and more. So I haven't yet worked with a client that has had, knee arthritis, which is one of the probably the most common areas that we see arthritis, that yes, pain changes, but always their quality of life changes in terms of what they're able to do and also what they're feeling confident in doing, whether that is just going down the stairs or picking up their grandkid and being able to confidently walk around holding them, or going for a bike ride and not feeling like, okay, I have to limit myself, or even something like, I've heard a lot of this, riding in the car or in a plane, and geez, I have to get up and move, or else then they won't move. So the really cool thing about exercise is that 100% will change how you're able to function in your body. And on occasion, and on very frequent occasion, it will change the sensation, the discomfort sensation.
Now, Julie, that's another really good point that you bring up, is that how potent exercise can be at helping you to keep doing the things you want to do. So one of the things that we tell a lot of our clients is, at some level, there are so many exercise options out there. It doesn't really matter as much which ones you choose, but the only option that you can't choose is to not exercise. Mm-hmm. So above all else, you have to make sure that you're continuing to exercise. And so with that in mind, you might be sitting there, if you're experiencing arthritis, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, there's no way I can exercise. It's too painful. It's too uncomfortable. And we get it. We work with people like that all the time. But what we want to offer today are some parameters and some guidelines for you to think about and some considerations for you to take while you're exercising to help influence how you're exercising, which should, if done correctly and if done appropriately, should help you to continue to exercise, and then which will then allow you to reap the benefits from exercise. But I want to put it out there is that there's a lot of ways to exercise, but at the end of the day, the only option that you can't choose, that you cannot choose, is to not exercise, because there are too many health benefits associated with exercise. There are too many health risks associated with not exercising. And so it's an absolute must, if you want to make sure that you're able to keep doing all the things that you want to do, that you spend some time exercising throughout your week. And so these parameters we're not going to tell you exactly what to do while you're exercising, but they are more guidelines for, regardless of how you're exercising, things to think about for while you're doing your exercises.
So the first thing is, weight training is incredibly important for keeping your knees healthy, keeping the muscles around your knees healthy, and keeping that joint as stress-free as possible, because it already has a stressor in there. So we got to, manage this thing. Our first tip is to move with less motion. A lot of times when you hear exercise people talking about exercise, or physical therapists talking about exercise, or anyone that has input on exercise, they're always saying full range of motion. You got to do the full range, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Sometimes that full range is not feeling so hot for you. And to do that full range, you're having to compensate or push through something that you already are feeling like, I should really not be doing that. So we're giving you permission right now. Do not move with full range. You're allowed to move with partial range, because guess what? Moving with partial range and strengthening the muscles in the range that you feel confident in is far more impactful than not doing it at all. And that's usually what the solution is that we hear our clients tell us, like, oh, I had a flare up with my knees last summer, so actually I didn't work out all summer. Okay, so their knees probably got even worse because they didn't do anything. So do partial ranges when you can.
Well, not only that, Julie, but like, how many times have you and I seen, like, within the session? We're not talking over the course of a month. We're talking within the exact same session, maybe 5 minutes apart. Mm-hmm. Because we just kind of respected the client's body, had them use just partial range to start, all of a sudden, after a set or two, they're able to use more range, and they're able to control it, and it's not uncomfortable for their body, anything like that. And so just this idea of kind of doing what your body can do, not what it can't do while you're exercising. And if you can't do full range, and just working where it can, where it's able to move, then you oftentimes will see improvements and increases in motion during that same workout. We're not talking a month down the line. We're not talking 5 months down the line. We're talking 5 minutes down the line. Your body's able to move better because you're respecting what your body's able to do.
Yeah, this really speaks to how adaptable muscles are. Muscles are amazing in that they adapt so quickly. I don't know of any other tissue in the body, which please note that I'm not a professional at understanding all the other tissues of the body, but it is amazing how quickly the muscle system changes. And we always have to remember that you have to do what you can do to be able to do what you cannot do. Because with exercise, the benefits that we get from exercise do not happen all within the session. Another thing that happens with exercise is we are looking for the result of exercise, right? Which is the adaptation from exercise, which actually happens during, some of them happen during the actual exercise, but a lot of them also happen during the recovery from exercise. So we often think like, well, if I want to improve, I have to push myself to new limits every single session. But we actually need to stay in our limits of what we can do. And actually when you get better is when you go and recover and you leave the gym, when you're resting, when your body's able to, relax after the exercise. So be mindful, especially and including when you're working with arthritic knees, do what you can do. That will open the door for the opportunity to maybe do more later.
Absolutely. And right along those lines is kind of the second consideration that we want you to take, which is to move where it doesn't hurt while you're doing the exercises. So let's say you are doing a leg press, okay, and you find that as you are lowering the weight, your knees are coming towards yourself. When you get about halfway down, that's when your knees start to bug you. Well, then our recommendation, kind of going along with the idea of using less motion, is to only move in the areas where it doesn't bother you. Now, don't get me wrong. You're going to need to kind of figure out where those areas are to begin with, which means you might kind of bump into an area where there's a little discomfort to start, but then you make a mental note of like, okay, for the next rep, I'm not going to lower the weight as far. And then you just kind of play in the area where it's not uncomfortable, where your joints don't bug you. And kind of like we've been talking about, when you do that, when you respect your body, when you stimulate your body where it's saying, hey, today I'm ready to be stimulated throughout this amount of motion, not throughout the entire amount of motion. When you just stick to the smaller amounts of motion, guess what? Your body's going to respond a lot more favorably, and very quickly, you will find that you may start to be able to use more motion and there's less discomfort. And again, this is something that we see every single hour that we're working with a client. When we respect what their body is able to do on that day at that moment, and just stay in the areas where there isn't any pain with the motion, over the course of doing a set, maybe 2 sets, their motion starts to increase. And it's not because we're stretching them. It's not because, we're massaging them or, we're releasing anything, but we're just respecting what their body's able to do. And all of a sudden their motion will open up and they'll have more motion without the pain than they did when they started. And so this is a really big thing, kind of going along with point number 1, moving with less motion, is point number 2, moving where it doesn't hurt to move.
So an application of this, Charlie already brought up the leg press. So let's say that, you come to the gym and you're like, today I'm going to do leg press. So you get on the leg press and you're doing a couple warm-up reps, lightweight, and you're like, man, my knees are not feeling this today. And actually this could really be applied to any joint that's included in the leg press, like your hips or your ankles. But anyways, we're talking about knees today. So you're doing it and you're like, man, my knees aren't feeling so hot. Julie and Charlie said maybe limit my range. So instead of having the excursion of the foot plate be, 2 feet, why don't you change the seat position or the foot plate position, whichever kind of machine you're on, and make it so you're doing half that range. So now you're only pushing 1 foot, which might feel like a really short range for you. It might feel really short. You're like, well, this doesn't even feel like a leg press anymore. I'm barely moving. But you know what? My pain went away. Or maybe it didn't quite yet and you have to move the seat back even more and now you're only moving 6 inches. But anyways, find what kind of range feels comfortable for you today. Because if you're doing lightweight, you're doing your warm-ups and your joints are already screaming at you, there's no way that your body's going to favorably respond to that leg press that day anyways. Okay, so we found a range that will work for you and you're doing your set and maybe you're adding weight because it's feeling good. There's no issues. The second set, you can do the same tiny range again because most likely it's still going to feel good. But guess what? You're already a set into your workout. You might as well try and inch the seat forward so that you get to move a little more. See how that feels. That feels good. You can inch it in even more. So during a set, just like Charlie said, during your sets, you can play with the range. Just because the first one you only move 6 inches doesn't mean that your last set will be 6 inches. Your body might just need more warm-up time, more time to get those muscles stimulated and get those muscles supporting that joint. So play with it throughout your workout to find what is feeling good right now. Not what felt good last set, but what feels good right now.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest myths that we run across in the fitness industry is the idea of the amount of motion that's being used directly relates to the effectiveness and the challenge of the exercise. And that's not the case at all. There's no correlation between moving more and having a greater challenge. In fact, moving more may just create more compensation, which can create less challenge in certain areas. And so it's not a good or bad thing. It's just kind of is what it is. But that being said, it kind of leads us into our next point, where you might get to the place where you decide that for a particular exercise or for a particular position where your body's in, you don't want to move at all. And you just decide to use isometrics, okay? And isometrics can be a really potent form of exercising where you're just focused on kind of strengthening your muscles. You're not worried about moving your joints at all. So if you find that, it doesn't matter how little I move, like my knee still bugs me when I do the leg press. My knee still bugs me when I do a knee extension or a leg extension. Well, guess what? You can then decide, instead of moving at all, you can just decide to not move and do an isometric. And the cool thing about it is you still get to strengthen your muscles doing the isometric, but there may be less stress that happens with your joints, and you're less likely to go into positions that bother your joints because you can kind of set it up into a single position, set up the exercise and do it in a single position where it's not bugging your joints. And so this is a really, really effective way if you find that, all right, you're moving less, you are moving where it doesn't hurt, but over time you're just finding that, you know what, even when I try to move less, even when I try to move where it doesn't hurt, there's still some discomfort involved. You can just opt to not move whatsoever and do an isometric. You're still going to get a great workout. I incorporate a lot of isometrics into my own workouts, and I see phenomenal things go with, my ability to build muscle, my ability to improve my strength. But you can incorporate those as a kind of strategic alternative to doing exercise with less motion, doing exercise moving where it doesn't hurt.
Isometrics can be such a great way to supplement those positions that you aren't feeling good moving into. So definitely incorporate those isometrics, and it's something that we really use here at the studio on the daily, especially with knees. I see a lot because the range just gets so limited, and we know that you get strong relative to the length of that muscle. So it is important that you are getting that range that feels uncomfy when you're moving, but a way that you can still keep that area strong is to move with no weight and then just do an isometric squeeze there at the top. And you can even position machines in ways that you have something to push against and get that nice muscle stimulation. So definitely include those isometrics. Our fourth point is to strengthen associated joints, okay? And specifically, we're going to be talking about the hips and the ankles. Now, we chose the hips and the ankles not because, well, they're neighboring joints, but for two specific reasons. They are neighboring joints, but the real influence that these joints have on the knee are huge. Number one, they influence the mechanics of the knee. So they influence how the knee joint is moving, how that tibia and femur are moving against each other. And second, there are a handful of muscles that cross both the knee and the ankle and the knee and the hip. And so keeping these muscles strong will influence the knee, even if you're not moving the knee. So the mechanics of it and the muscle sharing property that they have.
Yeah, this is a really, really big one that oftentimes people don't consider. They feel like, oh, well, my knee bugs me when I do the exercises, so I'm just not going to work my lower body at all. And what we try to present is the idea that, well, you can still work your lower body even if it bothers your knee. You just do exercises that maybe don't challenge your knee directly. Do exercises that challenge your hips. Do exercises that challenge your ankles, and you will see improvement. You will likely see improvement in your knee function and possibly even your knee symptoms by getting the muscles that cross your hips and getting the muscles that cross your ankles stronger, because, like Julie is saying, one, of the influence of the ankle and the hip on the knee, and two, because of the number of muscles that cross the knee that also cross the ankle, and that cross the knee and that also cross the hip. So you're still getting some of those muscles that will help to control the knee, even though you're maybe not doing like a knee exercise directly. So this is a really, really important one. And oftentimes when clients do start incorporating it, they see drastic changes in how their body feels and functions, because now all of a sudden the muscles of their lower body are getting this stimulus that they were just craving. And now they're able to start progressing in the right direction, as opposed to, well, everything bugs me, so I'm just going to avoid everything and it's just going to be all downhill from here.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I know there's muscles in the adductor group, the quad group, the hamstring group, a lot that's on the calf chunk in the backside of your lower leg bone. They are all influencers over the knee that can also be influenced when you challenge something in the hip or the ankle. Also, if you think about your knee not being perfect, right? We've got the arthritis going in there and your body's responding and all these things. What's interesting is that when there is less motion or less function happening in the knee, other joints have to start taking over and start compensating for that knee. So it's really important that also you're strengthening your ankle muscles and strengthening your hip muscles to keep them as mobile, as healthy, and as strong as possible, so that they can help you compensate, because arthritis isn't something that's reversible at this time, but also so that they don't get worn out. I mean, they're going to be taking more wear and tear now that your knee can't take on the stress that it's supposed to take on. So make sure that you're strengthening, you're doing your strength training for all the muscles in your hip and doing for your feet and ankles as well, so that not only will it benefit the knee, but so that those joints don't start wearing down as well.
Now, our final consideration for you to take is to look up a certified muscle activation technique specialist in your area, and by going to muscleactivation.com and clicking on the Find a Specialist tab. Additionally, find a certified resistance training specialist in your area, okay? These two disciplines, MAT is going to help to kind of tune your muscles up to make sure that all the muscles that are crossing your knees, are crossing your ankles, are crossing your hips are working well. So when you go to work out, you have everything working how it's supposed to work, and it'll help you recover better from your workout. And an RTS trainer will help design exercise for your body. So they have an understanding of how to build exercise from the ground up, specifically for your body's needs and abilities. So you get all your muscles working well with MAT, and then you combine that with the resistance training with RTS, and all of a sudden you have like a beautiful mix of both body tune-up and body challenge that will help you progress along your path to physical freedom. And so these are two of the things that we use here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, our specialties being muscle activation techniques and then one-on-one personal training, utilizing the RTS principles of building exercise from the ground up. And we see amazing things with people that have different orthopedic issues such as arthritis in the knee. So definitely check out certified specialists in your area for both muscle activation techniques and RTS. The RTS website is rts123.com, and you can find a roster there of people who are certified in your area. And then again, going to muscleactivation.com, clicking on a Find a Specialist tab to find certified specialists in your area. If you have both in your area or both under your under one roof, like we have here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, and you can get both aspects, I mean, it is amazing what can happen when you get your body tuned up, when you get your muscles working well, and then you get them strategically progressed and challenged with resistance training and with exercise. It's really cool. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know who is struggling with some knee arthritis or arthritis elsewhere in their body and feels like they can't exercise because it is bothering them? Share this episode with them so they can learn different considerations that they can start taking with their exercise to help them not only get back to exercise, but keep doing all the things they love to do for as long as they want to do them. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our content who are looking for podcasts on exercise, who are looking for podcasts on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let people know, share it with them, take a screenshot, throw it up on your Instagram story, tag myself, tag Julie, tag Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We'll be sure to reshare it with our followers so you get some exposure to our platforms, but also we just really appreciate anytime people do that. It really means the world to us. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.